Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. Today we've got another video in our Pearl Harbor series. This one we're going to talk about general quarters stations. During the attack on Pearl Harbor, many of the crews of the ships in port were off duty. They were in their berthing spaces, they were eating breakfast, and they had to rapidly go to a general quarters station. There is an alarm on the ship that goes off that tells people to go to their GQ stations, and then the ship's 1MC somebody would speak into that and tell you what was going on while you did this. Our 1MC works, and we do still use that on board. Our general quarters alarm is not currently working. So, Battleship New Jersey had anywhere from 1,500 to like 3,000 guys assigned to her at any one time. And when you come on board the ship, it's not like you're just wandering the ship, finding a bed, deciding where you get to work, what your job's going to be. There are very specific billets that you are assigned to. And that billet means that you have to have a certain rating and rank, that you have to, a certain skill set, you have to work in a certain place. And then during different other situations, you would go to different places on the ship. Also has a bed and a locker assigned to it. Now, the bunk and the locker aren't necessarily anywhere near each other. They do tend to usually be in the same row. And you're usually going to be berthed in a room with other people from your own division. So it tends to be a lot of people with the same jobs and ratings. Your berthing space isn't necessarily going to be anywhere near your general quarters station or your work area or any of that other stuff. However, in the example we've got today, it's not too far. Berthing spaces on Battleship New Jersey are almost all outside of the armored part of the ship. A lot of the working spaces are inside of the armored part of the ship. Our berthing spaces tend to be concentrated forward and aft. So they're usually forward of the number 1 gun in the unarmored part of the ship, and they're aft of the number 3 gun turret in the unarmored part of the ship. And they are usually there's some on main deck, and there's a lot on second and third deck, forward and aft. So let's just go through. This is a watch station and quarter bill, and this is what you would be able to look at to memorize what your job position is and figure out where you're going when you're assigned to the ship. So you got the name of the sailor, and these are all original names from 1991 when the ship was decommissioned, and their billet number that they're filling, and the rating that billet is supposed to be. It also tells you what division you're supposed to be in. In this case, most of these guys are in the S2 division, which is supply. And they tend to work below these berthing spaces here, under the waterline, are a lot of storage areas, so where a lot of their supplies are. So you got your billet numbers, your cleaning and maintenance schedules, and then you got your general quarters station. Most of these guys go to Wardroom, galley, bakery, those sorts of places. That's probably where they're working. There might be a lot of cooks here. But during general quarters, you need a lot of these low-ranking guys to be there, because those sorts of spaces are used as makeshift battle dressing stations in an emergency. Our medical spaces are all inside the armored part of the ship. So during general quarters, you seal all the doors in the ship, and you can't open them without permission from the damage control assistant. So without that permission, you are stuck in the part of the ship where you are. So if you have injuries, they go to a battle dressing station, which is like a trauma center / triage. There's usually some corpsmen of nurses there who can treat you. And then you're there until you can get permission to go down to the medical spaces. So these guys would have probably served as flying squads in those spaces so they could grab stretchers and go to places where we took damage and potentially had casualties. Let's see. You've got a couple different conditions, 1 through 5, for places you would go depending on which general quarters condition the ship is in. General quarters, everybody's at their battle stations, and then you might have other conditions where you don't need the whole crew there. And then let's see, we've got special sea detail, which is like you're coming into and out of port. You want to be close to, not a general quarters station, but close to some emergency spaces, so that if you have a steering failure while you're sailing up a channel, you can deal with that immediately. Fueling and transfer, you usually need a lot of hands to do refueling and get stuff on board. Rescue and assistance detail, are you going to be one of the people manning the rails on lookout? Or are you going to be manning one of the ship's boats? And as you can see, for most of these, the supply guys don't have stations. On smaller ships, almost everybody has stations. On a ship like this, where there are like 1,600 guys on board when this Wardroom station bill was written, a lot of them are superfluous. We've got a landing party if we send troops ashore. We've got a visit, board, and prize crew party, of which that would mostly be deck force, gunner's mates, those types of guys, not your S2 supply guys. You've got an emergency and abandoned stations position. So these are the numbers of the life raft that these guys would report to. And then would say what they're supposed to bring to that life raft. Like usually if there was a gunner's mate assigned to the raft, they would be in charge of grabbing a rifle to take with them in case of sharks. If there was a quartermaster assigned to the raft, he would be in charge of bringing a compass and a chart. These guys, the supply guys, aren't assigned to bring anything. They're extra bodies in the raft in case you have to resort to the tradition of the sea. That's a joke. And then you've got underway and import emergency positions. So that might be different from your general quarters position because you aren't going to have everybody on board or near their general quarters station. So like the fire that broke out on Bonham Richard earlier this year, they would have gone to their import emergency positions. And then you've got man overboard stations. So got a whole list of places where you're supposed to go if a certain alarm goes off, a certain announcement is made. Now, we've got 1,600 guys on here in the 90s, more earlier in the ship's career. When you go to general quarters and you've got minutes to jump out of your bed, pull on some pants and shoes, and get to a general quarters stations, it would be pandemonium on the ship if there weren't traffic control rules. So the standard rule that everybody learns in basic training is if you are going forward or up, you use the starboard side of the ship. If you're going aft or down, you use the port side of the ship. So this way, all the traffic is flowing in the same direction. Most of these spaces, like the one we're in right now, has a door on each side, and it would have ladders on each side if it had access to the main deck. So we're going to pick a random guy on here, and we're going to try and follow those rules while we go to his general quarters station. So, this guy right here, V. King, S5 Division, his general quarters station is at the battle dressing station in the wardroom. So, let's get there going aft and down on the port side and forward and up on the starboard side. Alright, so the general quarters alarm has just gone off. I've got to get out of my rack. In this case, it's rack number 35, which is the one King was assigned to. And at this point, I would get dressed and start to head to my general quarters station. Remember, I'm going to be heading aft to get to the wardroom. We're up here at frame 28 in one of the forward berthing spaces. So I'm going to be using the port side of the ship. And so like I said, up here on second deck is a lot of berthing spaces, including this space, which is currently an exhibit. It used to be a berthing space. Here's the bar bed for turret number 1, and berthing spaces all around us. So there is a ladder right on the other side of the ship here, a little bit aft around this bar bed, that would take me up to the wardroom. But I would have to go against traffic to go to the other side of the ship and do that. So we're going to actually go aft of the wardroom and then pop up. These are primarily office spaces that we're going through right now. Not much pandemonium when it's just one person walking through here, but imagine me going much faster and being one of hundreds of sailors going in this direction. Alright, so here I am at a ladder. This is a down ladder. You'll notice it's a lot less steep than the one we'll go to. This one's easier for people to come down. Even though we've got ladders more or less on opposite sides of the ship here, the ones here on the port side for going down are less steep, and the ones on the starboard side for going up are more steep. So yeah, this thing's nearly vertical. Now, sailors wouldn't have had to contend with all the museum ropes that I'm dealing with today. Now we're on the starboard side of the ship, near the offices. I can start to head forward. Here we are in the wardroom, a battle dressing station. And now that all of the sailors who are assigned to this space have gotten here, it's time to go through and make sure the ship is ready for general quarters. So you would go through and you would dog all the doors, all the dogs on watertight doors. You'd close all the battle ports. You'd close any interior doors. The wardroom here doesn't have any watertight interior doors, it's all joiner doors, but if I was in a different space it might be different, and then there might be other things, shut off blowers and fans, do things like that. So these procedures are practiced and drilled on all Navy ships. This dates back to the age of sail and will continue to go forward in the ships in the future. You got to know how to get to your general quarters stations. You got to know how to do it with lights out, other stuff. During the attack on Pearl Harbor, it took approximately 5 minutes from when the first bomb started falling over the anchorage for the first sailors to get to their general quarters stations and return fire. And they were doing this with extreme difficulty because they weren't at a wartime footing. They didn't have ready service ammunition on hand. Lots of their magazines were locked up. And because they were in port, many of their shipmates were ashore and not on board, so they weren't doing it with a full crew. And yet, within a very short period of time, these guys were able to navigate extremely large and complicated ships and get where they needed to go with enough buddies to make their weapon systems work. Thanks for watching today. Remember to like, share, and subscribe so you're notified when we put out more content. We're tying all of our videos this week into Pearl Harbor, so if you're interested in that, subscribe so you can see some more. If you would like to support our museum and our YouTube channel, there's a link in the description that'll take you to our GoFundMe campaign. Anything you donate there goes right back into what we do here.